Sorry in advance for the tech issues. I'm going to go with the theory that the inspectors did this because Lee's on here. So in the absence of a new chair, which we'll have shortly, I talked to Leslie, and I think she's going to kick us off for one final kickoff from Leslie Lerner.
Woohoo! Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. It is now 10:07, and we're going to call the July 14th meeting to order. Do you want me to go ahead for number 2 also, Vanessa?
I can cover it.
Okay. While we're waiting on her, I know that we have a lot of our members on this call today, or a couple are there. Our future meetings will be in person. So as I said in my email, if you're over obligated or have a lot going on and cannot continue to serve and cannot continue to provide your feedback via surveys or stay on the calls or stay in the meetings the whole time or whatever else, if you're not able to fulfill the obligation, because we're also going to start some groups outside of this group to get stuff done, because we have such a small window, meeting only 4 times a year for the most part. So in order to get stuff done, we're going to have to start maybe having other groups be able to push things to the commission. So if you're not able to serve, please let Vanessa know so we can get people on here that really want to work.
Okay, and I think we are back.
There you go.
And I don't know why we're having issues. It's just, well, we're gonna somehow get it sorted. That said, I think I heard the tail end of what Leslie said. I was just gonna cover some of the basics just as a reminder to mute. That raise hand function. If we don't see that your hand is raised and it seems like we don't see that, just speak up. And we try and have the commission members on the screen with their cameras on. I feel like I'm forgetting. For better or worse, I will probably be more active in this meeting than normal, which some of you are probably like, she's already pretty active in these meetings. But we're going to do some coordination in terms of, we've got the new chair election coming up. That person will actually take the virtual gavel and take this meeting, for which I can provide assistance. In that same vein, I don't know if Leslie said this, just because of the prep work that has gone into this meeting, we're going to see Leslie taking some charge in the substantive topics on Supplement A and the outreach surveys, just for the sole fact that she's put a lot of work into it. And so this will be sort of her transition out as chair and into what I hope is another really active commissioner liaison on this group, because I think we've got a lot to discuss. Without further ado, I think you guys have the technical housekeeping stuff. Leslie, I'm going to turn it back to you, and I will be available when y'all need me.
Okay, so we, our first question was what we had decided to do. Oh, we're going to do, I'm sorry, I'm looking. Yes, we're going to talk about outreach. And what do you want to?
Sorry, I think we need to move to the elections.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So what we have next up on the agenda is election of a chair, and there can be some conversation about this, or if somebody has nominations, thoughts, feelings.
Holly has a big smile on her face.
So I have a question. This is Bob.
Yep. Yes.
So we do the chair. Do we also do a vice chair, or is that the chair's job or something else? Do we do both of those, or what's our process here?
We have a vice chair and a secretary already, so this would just, unless unless one of those moves into the chair position by vote, it'll just be for the chair.
Okay, so do we discuss the people we might want to suggest, or how do you see us going through this?
Yeah, I think there can be some discussion on that, and you can do a nomination if you want to. You know, I think a little bit of discussion can work pretty well just to gauge people's interest too. Barbara, did you have something?
Yes, you want to tell us who the vice chair and secretary are? Because Bob wasn't here at the very beginning.
I knew that was going to be the question.
Pam Titzel is the vice, I know Pam is the vice.
Pam is the vice chair.
Secretary.
And who is the secretary? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Secretary is Brian Sales. Yeah.
I did know that, Brian.
Okay.
Is there
So you got
anybody that
Pam?
would like to be the chair? I'll put it that way.
This is Bill Roth. I'd be happy to do it, and I've got the time to do it. Unless somebody's really, anxious to do it, I'd be happy to volunteer to do it if you feel like I would be able to do it for y'all.
I think Bill, this is Soccer. I think Bill would make a great chair.
Yes.
I will second. I will
I
second
believe-
Soccer's motion.
I believe Chance also submitted his name as well.
Correct.
I would like to second either one of those choices. Chance, I've known Chance for years. He's a good guy and he's a go-getter, so I think he'd be a wise choice as well. Both are good guys.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome.
And everyone, I think maybe, I'm not sure if this got covered. This is Ty. Ty's our newest member. He's taking Leslie's role.
Leslie?
Hi,
Everyone?
Ty. I can't see you
Good
on
to
my
see you.
screen. I'm trying to figure out how I can see you.
We're way down at the end of the conference table.
Right? Yeah, we're way down here.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
So another question, if I might. I think we've got some great candidates. Certainly their willingness to do something is a big thing. Could we be reminded of who they are and their background as we look at that relating to the chair position?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to tell you a little bit about me. I'm from Dallas, originally from El Paso. I've been a real estate agent and broker here in Dallas area for probably 40 years now. I've owned and managed my own company. We have a commercial real estate company. We own and manage shopping centers, office buildings, warehouses in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We represent fast food restaurants, and we put together little syndications for partnerships to own properties. I'm also an attorney, and about 30% of my business is related to legal stuff related to real estate, and been involved. I was past president of the Dallas Association of Realtors, Metro Texas Association. I'm on the board of the North Texas Commercial Association of Realtors. Been very active in TAR and Texas Real Estate and the NetCar and MetroTex in various capacities. Probably gone through most of the committees in those organizations, and feel like this is a real important committee, and I think that it's something I'd like to devote some attention to, and certainly be help in participating.
Thank you.
My name is Chance Brown. I come from Houston, where I'm the broker owner of CB&A Realtors. I have about 450 agents in the Houston area, 5 offices now. I serve on the board of directors for HAR. I was the 2017 HAR Realtor of the Year. I've served on the board for TAR and NAR. I am have been a tree pack trustee where I led Houston to be the first local association in the country to raise $1 million in a year. Served on a bunch of different committees at the state level. I will be Russell Berry's executive appointee to the executive, or the chair appointee to the executive committee next year. And so, yeah, that's me.
Great. So I think, I don't know if everybody knows kind of what the chair does, and not to say everybody does everything the same, but I always am meeting with Vanessa and the staff. We come up with the surveys that are sent to you. I make those for the staff to send out. Also the PowerPoint presentations. I take everybody's answers to everything, type it in the PowerPoint presentations and send them to Amber. We really work on the agenda together. So there is some time involvement and some prep work and involvement to help the staff. So that would be part of this.
So I think, yes, so I think we can entertain a nomination, a second. Somebody wants to make a nomination, somebody wants to second it.
I thought we had.
And then we'll do a roll call vote on that. And depending on how that goes, see if we need a second one. Don't everybody speak at once.
Okay, I would like to make a nomination. This is Bob. I'd like to nominate for this esteemed position here. I think Bill Roth would be great to do this. His background is great. He's got a lot of experience, and his willingness to step up is good, although Chance is very impressive. So I'd like to nominate Bill Roth.
I'd like to nominate Chance.
Oh, I think what we do is we'll take a second on that, if there's a second.
Okay.
Vanessa,
Yes.
do liaisons vote?
No,
Okay.
they do not. Good question.
I second that
This is Brian. I
nomination.
would second Bob Baker's motion.
Okay.
For Bill Roth.
Okay, so that's a second from Brian.
Yes.
Okay, Amber, do you want to, I'm sorry, are you?
We just have the one nomination, or we can just do it.
I was just going to do the one nomination with a vote. Is that not how you all typically do it?
I think you should do all the nominations and then do the vote.
Okay, so now, well, sorry. We will do a second nomination if I have one.
I'd like to nominate Chance.
Leslie, you cannot nominate Chance.
Oh, okay.
But thanks for trying.
You're in a weird dual role at the moment.
I guess I
Okay,
am.
this is Ty Williams. I will nominate Chance.
This is Soccer. I will second that.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no more nominations, we're going to close nominations. And now, Amber, you're going to do the roll call? Okay, so you can state your preferred candidate when Amber calls your name. Is that how we're doing it?
Yeah.
It's so different.
Bob Baker.
I think he's muted. Amber's gonna do a roll call right now, and just make sure you're unmuted.
Yeah, just state who you're voting for when I call your name, please, between Chance and Bill. Bob Baker.
Bob, you're muted.
I'm sorry, Bill Roth. Thank you.
Chance.
I vote for myself.
Soccer.
Chance.
Holly.
Holly's muted.
I'm unmuting.
There.
It's not wanting to unmute.
No, we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Oh, can you? Okay, Chance.
Yasmin's not here, right?
Bill,
I'll vote for myself.
Brian,
Bill,
Pam,
Chance,
and Ty.
Chance.
We have 5 votes in favor of Chance and 3 votes in favor of Bill. So Chance.
And one member not present. All right.
Good deal. Congratulations, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
I'm happy to help you in any way I can, obviously.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the support. Okay. So where do you want to go next with our agenda?
Okay. The next on the agenda is public comment, including any written public comment received on non-agenda items. Going to my bookmarks real quick.
We do have some, right?
We do have some.
Lee is here. Lee wants to make a public comment.
We have Lee present with a public comment, and then we've also got some in the materials, as I recall. We can start with Lee and I'll pull up the.
Perfect. Lee, do you want to go ahead and take the floor?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Lee Warren. I am a licensed professional inspector and a licensed real estate broker here in Texas. I've owned an inspection company and my real estate brokerage for over 16 years. I sit on the board of directors of the Collin County Association of Realtors. I sit on the property professional standards committee for Texas Realtors. I'm the chair of the leasing and property management committee for Texas Realtors, and I'm the chair of the inspector advisory committee for the Texas Real Estate Commission. As many of us have seen for a number of years, there have always been a substantial percentage of the complaints that come through TREC, which are property management related. These seem to increase in frequency every time the market goes through highs and lows, which we're in the process of right now. TREC currently licenses over 160,000 actively licensed agents and brokers. And as the market begins to shift, many of those that find difficulty in procuring clients to buy or sell properties often turn to property management as a means to sustain an income in this industry. Currently, a licensee must have competence in the field prior to proceeding to work in it. However, the only time this typically gets enforced is after a complaint has been filed, and that licensee would then have to show competence in that field. This puts consumers at risk as there is a substantial number of licensees that are performing property management operations with no knowledge on how to perform them properly or legally. Anyone that looks through the disciplinary actions from the Texas Real Estate Commission with any regularity knows that this is the case. In my experience of managing properties, I have seen licensees that are managing without the knowledge of their broker, getting paid directly, giving legal advice to clients, commingling monies from tenants, landlords, rents, and security deposits with no realization that they're doing anything wrong at all. TREC even had one of the most egregious violations of a property manager a couple years ago. This licensee had over 60 violations of the Real Estate Act, was fined $122,000 by TREC, had $100,000 paid out from the recovery fund to her victims. The license was revoked, acquired 16 judgments levied against her in an 18-month period for monies amounting to over $625,000 from consumers. Those with judgments that did not get monies via the recovery fund were left to attempt to collect them on their own. Those efforts were short-lived as former licensee filed bankruptcy and wiped out all of those judgments clean, having never had to pay a dime back to consumers that were defrauded. The district attorney refused to file charges even though there was clear evidence, and that even though representatives from TREC specifically met with them to try and get that to happen. This is just a small example of the threat to consumers that can exist within the arena of expertise that is property management. Now, I realize there's no way to prevent all improper activity or negligence of property managers, but I feel we owe it to the consumers of Texas to do as much as possible to try and prevent them from being taken advantage of by licensees that are supposed to be held to a higher standard to protect the best interests of their clients. There was some discussion in years past about creating a separate license for property managers. Though I know many professionals in this industry would welcome that, I also realize that I believe that this would take a statutory change. Considering the Sunset Committee's recent report and governor's directive that we should not put up roadblocks to entering the industry, this would be a tough task to accomplish in a reasonable amount of time. Currently, in order for a broker to manage agents, they must go through the broker responsibility course and be a designated supervisor. So consumers can go onto TREC's website and see whether the licensee is a designated supervisor or not. Salespersons can also see this information should they want to verify the broker's ability to manage prior to attempting to be sponsored by them. What if we were to do something similar from the property management side? If we were to designate and require, for example, an 8-hour course to encompass the minimum requirements of property management, then at least we would know that a licensee that engages in that activity would have at least the bare minimum of knowledge needed to perform such tasks. One option would be to make this a required course for pre-licensure. We wouldn't have to add course hours in order to obtain the license. We could possibly replace it with elective hours instead. Another option would be to require this course to be taken prior to the licensee and broker being able to perform property management activities. In order for a broker to sponsor a licensee that intends to perform property management, they would be required to complete the course as well. After all, how can you sponsor a licensee that will perform property management if you lack the basic knowledge of the requirements of it? Much like the designated supervisor line on the licensee's information on the TREC website, this property management designation could be made visible as well. I know that in order to do this, there would be a long road of creating a course that would satisfy the minimum requirements for property managers. I also know this would not fix the problem in its entirety. However, the current lack of requirements for property managers in place puts consumers at a greater risk than they should be. Property management professionals in the industry have been asking for a means to help ensure that those in the industry are educated to do so properly for some time. I would be more than willing to put forth the effort for the long haul to help ensure that consumers that entrust their investments to a licensee to manage those investments are well prepared to do so legally, properly, and ethically. I am certainly open to suggestions to help this become a reality. I wanted to provide at least one or two possible resolutions because I didn't feel it prudent to simply throw a problem at you that we all know is an issue yet not provide any solution. I feel this is something I would like to see the broker responsibility work group address, and I'm willing to assist in any way I can to get us one step closer to reducing the number of property management related disciplinary actions that plague this commission on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
And so this is something that you guys can think about putting on a future agenda.
Okay.
If anybody has any comments.
Does anybody have any questions or anything for Lee before?
Lee, would you recap what you're recommending, the 8-hour course and designated supervisor, just those recommendations?
Well, I look at currently in order to sponsor agents, you have to be a designated supervisor. You're going to take, I believe it's the broker responsibility course to do that. And if you look on TREC's website, you can see very clearly on a broker's license, are they a designated supervisor or not? What I'm suggesting, because this may involve just a rule change as opposed to a statutory change, which makes it a lot easier for us to do this internally as opposed to going back to the legislature, to do something similar from the property management side, to be able to not just be designated supervisor, but designated property manager or something of that nature. We could create an 8-hour course as a continuing education course to be done just like broker responsibility and do it that way. Or if we wanted to try and head it off earlier to do it as a pre-licensure course and replace it with an elective. That way you don't have to add hours, because I know a lot of times when you try to add hours to pre-licensure, a lot of people don't particularly tend to like that, and it would possibly be perceived as going against the governor's directive to reducing roadblocks to entry into the industry. So doing something of that nature, and I'd be more than willing to help in the process of putting together that 8-hour course. I know that Texas Realtors, we've talked about that from the Leasing and Property Management Committee side on there. We'd be more than happy to help put that course together and work towards that goal as well.
So when you talk about the Texas Realtor side, are you thinking something along the lines of the residential property management certification course that they have?
Something along those lines, yes. Obviously, you can't fit everything that I feel one should know about property management in 8 hours, but I think it's a good start to get there. I think you can get a lot of information in there. There's so many licensees out there that even though whether they're actually doing full property management or not, they're doing some form or fashion of it, whether it being lease ups, those types of things, but they're still performing property management functions, even if they aren't routinely managing properties. So I think this is a much bigger issue than just people that are doing full-time property management.
So can I play devil's advocate with you, Lee?
Sure.
So I know Mike Mingdon. I was talking to him on my way up here this morning. He teaches the residential property management class at HAR. And one of the tricks that he likes to play on his students when he's there is he asked them how many of them have a trust account. And routinely, a number of them raised their hands, which, you know, obviously we know that they should not have a trust account. That should be going into their broker's trust account, right? My question would be, let's say all of this was put into place from your suggestion, is how would we enforce it? Because I feel like the vast majority of the people that are in that room that raise their hand, their brokers don't know that they have trust.
And I think that's a big problem too. I think there's a lot of agents, I've run across this myself, where agents are being paid directly by owners for property management services and stuff of that nature. Currently, I think with the addition of the course, it gives Truck a little bit more bite, that if you're performing an activity such as property management without having taken that course, that would be a requirement at that time, that it gives, I think, enforcement a little bit more of a bite as far as being able to hold them accountable for those things. I think not only it protects consumers, but I think from an administration and logistical perspective, it gives Truck enforcement a little bit more leg to stand on. If it's very clear cut, if you're performing property management and you haven't taken this course, you lack that prior knowledge to do it, then that's one issue. The other issue, obviously, is if they're doing it incorrectly. But I think if those people have been required to take a course, that they have the knowledge that's there, they can't claim ignorance when enforcement comes through and tries to say something of that nature about having a trust account.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Lee, I think you've got a good idea going here. Honestly, I think this is a great idea, Lee. I also think that this might be a good idea for commercial as well. And this is Ty Williams, by the way.
So what you can do here is if, but, you know, I think there's, talking with Abby and Jennifer, the Director of Education Services, has been messaging me. I think this is something that if this group wants to look at it, we can put it on the agenda for the next time. You can direct staff to do a little bit of research into some of the stuff that he's proposing, talking about. We can bring you a staff report on the next one, something along those lines, if that's, you know, the will of the group.
Okay, Lee, thank you for being here. We're going to discuss this and see if we want to put it on the agenda for next time. I think, you know, there's probably, I saw enough nodding heads, and I think that there's probably good reason to do so, and do a little deeper dive in this. We may have to consult with our friends on the Education Standards Advisory Group, but thank you for taking the time to meet with us this morning.
No, thank you for the opportunity, and I don't want to be the guy who just throws something out at you. I stand by it. I'm willing to take the time and make the effort to help make this work.
Great, we appreciate it.
Amber, I think, is going to post the other two written comments that we.
Okay. Do we want to have a discussion about this now, or do we want to wait till after we've seen the other?
We can put there. You have an item later on for things to put on the agenda.
All right. Okay, so we have a couple of comments on non-agenda items. The first one from Sharon Rochert, which she's part of Stanbury. You want me to read this?
No, I think you can.
Everybody seen it?
Yeah.
Everybody seen this already?
Yes.
Should have been in the materials.
Yes.
What it was. Anybody has any comment on it?
Any comments, thoughts that you'd like to discuss on this matter? I mean, I think it touches some of the stuff we've already talked about.
Yeah, that was going to be Brian. That was going to be my comment. Is Sharon Roschert's comments are specific to the discussions we're already having, and just emphasizes the changes that we have proposed.
Right.
Yeah. Great.
This is Bill Roth. Relative to this issue, I was approached by somebody who had submitted a letter to us earlier in the year. I think it was Shea Center, and he was expressing also similar concerns over the requirements for folks that didn't have college educated degrees and were unable to easily satisfy some of the requirements. And it seems like we had probably some previous letters from some folks too, relative to this issue. It may be a bigger issue than we really initially focused on, and I think we may want to sort of look into it a little bit more later on.
Very good. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, and
And then we have John Moran's letter, who says we're all idiots and challenge us to a fight. Any comments on this one?
Yes, I have a comment. This is Ty Williams. I wanted to make a comment that if this gentleman was so involved in Texas real estate, he would have known that I don't think that I can remember a time when we had reciprocity in place. And it tells me he needs a little more education on Texas real estate rules and regulations.
I agree with Ty. This is Soccer.
I agree too.
Hi, this is Bob, and I agree. One of the greatest challenges some of my agents have are those who are licensed in another state, and they come here and then they try to remember, wait a minute, was that a Oklahoma rule or a Texas rule or a North Carolina rule? So
That's right.
I think it's really important when they come here, they understand what our rules are and they understand what we do here, and they don't keep falling back to, well, you know, in California. I say, well, you're not in California. Thank goodness.
Right.
Amen. Amen, brother.
I will say one more thing too, and it's just only because of the, I think saying the kind of the deal on the education when it comes to the rules, the amount of hours that you need to get your broker's license or what have you. Personally, I think that, I think it's good that we require the amount of hours that we have for brokers to get their license here, because the one thing I do get the call on every once in a while, I mean, I'm sure you've all had this call. I've been doing this for X amount of years, and they're doing it wrong for that amount of time.
Yes.
And I think it's really good for people to make sure that they're 100% educated and not just giving a free handout to have a broker's license just because you were licensed in Nevada.
You always know when they preface it with, I've been doing this for so many years, that the next thing out of their mouth is probably going to be wrong.
Yeah, or rude.
Yeah.
Or they say with all due respect.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
There's also
This
many
is
states
Soccer.
that only have a broker's license.
Oh, okay.
Sorry?
Go ahead.
There's also many states that only have a broker's license.
Correct.
Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
New Mexico.
Colorado.
Did you notice what he's also said in that letter, that he was a broker? Also, isn't he claiming he's a broker in the state of Texas? Isn't that, and he's not a broker, isn't that a violation?
Yep.
Yep.
That's a violation.
I just figured I'd throw that out there.
This is Soccer. I think I agree with Ty. You know, having the number, and we've discussed this many times, having the numbers that we do as far as getting a broker's license is wonderful, because I have a friend in Hoboken, New Jersey, and he's studying for his broker's license. He's been selling real estate for 25 years. He only needs 150 hours. He needed 24 hours to get his license, and now to get his broker's license, he only needs 150 hours. So keep up the good work. Let's, you know, we don't have to make it onerous, but we do have to make it worth something.
Exactly. Excellent point. All right, and then last but not least, some person named Leslie Lerner sent an email. I don't know if we should give her time to comment or what, but you know.
I don't know. Who is that person?
Someone you don't have to hear as much anymore. I was just thinking, because a lot of people are talking about the complaint process and people don't know about it. If that information was added to the information about brokerage services, it would be there for people to see. Just another avenue to communicate.
Do you think that they should go that route prior to contacting a broker? That would be my only thought.
That just the information about how to or you can file a complaint at whatever on the information about brokerage services couldn't do any harm. And it also just shows another way to advertise. If you do have a complaint, this is where you go.
Hang on, Leslie, we're talking about you behind your back.
You can do that as long as you want. This better be good.
Okay. I was asking if that was something that we needed to send to broker lawyer, if that was something that we could talk about. So we can also add that to our agenda later in the day when we talk about Lee's proposal and maybe add it to the agenda for another meeting. That's all for public comment, right?
That's all. Yeah, we're gonna have one. We have one additional one under an item. But
okay. So do we want to start discussion about outreach?
Yeah, and Leslie can.
Leslie, I'm going to turn it over to you because since you've done all the legwork on this.
I guess you'll have to listen to me again. Okay. So we were talking about top priorities of if we start this outreach campaign, what are our top priorities? And we got some good feedback. I feel like a lot of us may be on not different pages, so to speak, but we all have different thoughts about this and we all are kind of going on different directions. So we're going to talk about it. And I think the best way is to kind of go through these and let each person talk about what they sent in. Yasmin's not here today, but she talked about pretty much connecting with brokers and agents and educating brokers and agents, holding classes or sessions on how to obtain a broker's license, let a certain number to sit in through a complaint to see how it's handled, and build a rapport with brokers and agents. So hers is more about broker responsibility in a nutshell, and start promoting that. I wrote about getting a little bit more presence on social media, kind of like the local associations do, and start using, once we build up an audience, start promoting more training, more events, and all that through there, and using videos rather than text, because a lot of us don't like to read a lot of emails and a lot of text. So if you have a short video that kind of pulls someone in, maybe that could help. So those videos can talk about training, contract forms and how to complete them, consumer training, first-time home buyer, how licensees can assist buyers and sellers versus FSBO. There's so many avenues we could go down, but we just need the eyes on it. And I think if we had more of a social media presence, which I don't like social media, but that's the world we live in, then maybe that would help. And then maybe a consumer awareness campaign. And I know this came out in ESAC too, of what a competent agent and broker look like and what should be expected of them when representing you. And then maybe a task force of a group of people within TREC to go out and do speaking engagements and discuss what's going on with TREC and how to stay out of trouble and that kind of thing. Bob Baker, you want to talk about your top priorities?
Okay, sure. On the top priorities, one of the things is we did some revisions and everything the TREC did in 535.2 broker responsibility. You know, we've got a lot of things listed out there, but I think there needs to be a better clarification. You know, we talked recently, and I see Jan's on our call, so she would remember her comment before on geographical competency. That's a challenge. You know, we're not even entirely sure what that means, the prudent person rule and all those things. You know, when TREC says, you know, someone needs to be competent in whatever they do, I think you've got a good general sense of that, but I think some more clarification, because when you deal with a TREC complaint, unfortunately, and I have for my agents, you know, and they go down that list and say, how do you do this, this, and this? And you go to your procedures manual and so forth. I just would like to see some clarification of how these rules are really applied in the real world and kind of working through this from that standpoint on the top priority.
Perfect. Jan, I know you're driving. Did you want to talk about your priorities, or did you want me to review, or how did you want to do that?
You can review what I said.
Okay,
please.
Perfect. Jan had mentioned continued newsletters leaving out the legalese, so they don't see just everything. They just get to the point of knowing what you're talking about. Visits to boards are great if the boards can assure good attendance. Coordination if possible with what's going on with Texas Realtors so it can stress it harder, or so they're not hitting the same subject at the same time. So hers is pretty much about the written publications and also visiting the board. Holly.
We're going to try to unmute. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
You can?
I can.
Okay. So mine is in the line with what Jan had done. I think that having truck involvement at local associations is more powerful, because having a presence there will allow everyone to feel like you're approachable, where most agents, in my opinion, feel like truck is the, that's where your license comes from, and that's where you get punishment, and that sort of, ideal. So I feel like having that involvement and maybe doing some coordination. I know that Texas Realtors does the 360 meeting in each region. So maybe doing a coordination with that would be a good route or avenue to go, because I think the approachability, everybody that I've worked with at Trek is amazing. So having that approachability is what we need to look at. And then educate on what we're talking about with broker worker here, that, the importance of broker oversight and that sort of thing. So it can be in tandem, but additional information. And that's basically what I felt like was the most important thing, is that approachability, the transparency, and getting to the point in the newsletters. That would be great too, without legalese. So yeah, that would be most helpful, and I think that it would be better read by the people that they're targeting.
I like that idea. I like that idea of adding a Trek element to the 360 meetings.
I think Barbara has her hand up.
Barbara, I believe you're muted.
Okay. Our local association started having education summit about 3 years ago. Last year it was virtual, but it'll be in the fall, and we have on the program a couple of members of the Trek people that will be speaking. So I'm really glad that brings our association in, and there'll be quite a good number at that meeting. So having some of the staff come and just meet and talk about what Trek's all about, I think will be good.
Okay, Bill, you want to review what your top priorities are?
Sure.
Actually, Leslie, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in real quick.
Sure.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Bill. We're going to need to take about a 10-minute break. There are continued technical difficulties here in this conference room, where they're about to take the internet down and kind of reset stuff. So if we can reconvene in 10 minutes, that would be fantastic, and continue this discussion.
Everyone hold your thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh, right, Bill. We're going to get back started, and Bill, since you're already talking, keep rolling with your comments. I will warn you, we are not 100% sure we have our technical difficulties here at the building figured out. So if everybody disappears in the next 5 or 6 minutes, just log back in. But I think we're in good shape, so let's keep rolling. And I think Leslie had left off with Bill giving his outreach thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. My comments were pretty much similar to everybody else's. The the priorities that I think we should be sort of focusing on is really figuring out a policy and some kind of a procedure to transmit critical information. I think we're all overloaded with a lot of information. So if we can figure out a way to figure out what's really critical to people, make sure that that's targeted to people directly and frequently, that might be something to think about. I think we need to sort of make sure that TREC is a resource for advice and direction on things, and that it's a user-friendly and a receptive partner with the realtors and with the consumer, rather than a sort of a face in the background. I also think that there should be some kind of a priority to figure out how we can get feedback from our local associations and from our local realtor offices, real estate offices, so that TREC understands what's really happening out in the field. There's a lot of push down of information from TREC down into the field, but I don't know that I've got a sense that there's good communication the other way coming back from the field into TREC. And I think to the point that several people mentioned that, maybe TREC needs to be focused on being using more of carrots instead of the stick attitude, be more promoting of the good things that real estate professionals do, and maybe incentivize, good performance by, rather than penalizing bad performance. Why don't we incentivize good performance and try to get people on board in a positive way?
Okay.
I like that idea. I like that idea of reaching out to the locals. I think that's a great idea, Bill.
Hi, I think you had some stuff too, right?
Yes, this is Ty Williams. I actually have I have a handful of things here that I'd like to go over. I'll second some of the things that have been said about going out into the field, community outreach events, such as like a multi-city tour, maybe at the boards. I think that would be really pretty neat. A town hall style event would be pretty neat. And I think those would be really a good way to connect with people. Covering topics such as advertising, legal and ethics, teams and brokerage, designated supervisors, and I like Lee's idea. If we can get that in the books, that would be great too. And I also think that it would be great for us to go over the complaint process. And I think that we need to educate brokers and agents on how that process should go if it goes smoothly, and how it could go terribly wrong if you don't respond. I think, we can look at different things in the newsletter, and that really does help, but I think it'd be great maybe to even do a mock scenario, a mock scenario on a complaint. I think that would be pretty neat. I also think I like the idea of giving bidirectional feedback. That means feedback back to the commission. An idea box, basically something where someone sends in an idea, whether it really be pertinent to whatever we're talking about or not, but they have an idea box for engagement from the community, whether it comes from an agent, broker, or whatever, and giving feedback on something that's happening. And we call it maybe an idea box, so it's not just an email. And then also, I think there needs to be better communication on what a broker does, what a salesperson does, and what a team lead will do. And I think there needs to be more of a clear-cut answer to the field on that, because I think team leads seem to think they're brokers a lot of the time, and I think it'd be good to have some real clarification on that.
Ty, if you don't mind, after the meeting, can you send your ideas in an email so we can add it to the materials to refer to?
I will definitely do that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Brian or Pam, do y'all have anything to add? No. Chance, do you have anything to add?
I do. I have two items, and I'll also submit them after the meeting. One would be, and I've kind of advocated this to Lori Levy, is some sort of white paper or documentation on brokerage succession. I know that it was talked about in one of the legal updates this time around, but I have had brokers in my area who literally don't understand that if something were to happen to them, all of their agents are unsponsored and all their contracts are dead, which is bad. So they should have a plan in place for something like that. And so I think we should have some on that. And then probably the biggest one is understanding forms. And so like inside my brokerage, we have a forms library where we have video explanation, walkthrough from people like Avis, from Carrie, from Don Moore, who will walk through the videos, walk through each form and actually explain what it is, how to fill it out, that kind of stuff. Those are the questions that I get, especially in the market that we're in right now, with the form that I hate more than any other form in the world, the addendum concerning right to terminate due to lender appraisal.
Yes,
Agreed.
I agree. Leslie, I don't have anything. I agree with a lot that's been said though this morning. So especially about understanding the forms and stuff.
perfect. Vanessa, I think, had something to add as well.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? I've moved in the room.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so I just wanted to add a couple of things in terms of, so we are frantically taking notes / recording this meeting. I second the thought of some of these things that have been mentioned, sending them in to us so that we have them. We do have on this meeting / call, we have Christine here who does our communications, and she is listening in and hearing what you're saying. If you have questions of her, you can feel free to ask them. And, you know, I know some of this stuff is probably out there, but is it out there in a way that people are accessing? I don't know. We do look at that. I think we run some logistics on that. And then what can we do? That's going to be an internal conversation, right? Of like, okay, we're getting all these ideas from you all who are out there. You're seeing the stuff that we don't see. Well, we see it in complaint form, right? And we know that what we see in complaint form is a pretty small percentage. So the thought is, what are you guys seeing out there? And I think you just listed some really great stuff. And where could, from an outreach perspective, because some of these recommendations are going to go to the commission and this workshop for, you know, what are the ways in which TREC can do some outreach? Sure. Are we limited by some things because we are a state agency? 100%. Are there different ways we could get messages out? 150%, right? I think we can all agree to that. So I just would encourage that conversation and to let us know, you know, what are you seeing? Like succession planning, that's a great one. Forms, that's a great one. What are you seeing sort of the heavy hitting topics as they relate to, you know, what's going on out there? That broker agent relationship sounds like getting in contact with brokers is a lot harder than it should be. That's what I keep hearing. But things like that. So I just wanted to mention that, you know, that's kind of what we're looking at. And I know Leslie's steering us here, but these are what the plan is to take this to the full commission at that workshop, run through some of this stuff, start looking at how we can get out there. And I just also wanted to mention that we do have Christine here. She is listening, but if you have questions for her, you can also ask her questions.
I have a question for you, Christine.
I'm here and listening.
Okay, so as you're listening to us throw these suggestions out, and you know, not to make generalizations, but realtors suffer from a disease called RDR, right? Realtors don't read.
Yep.
And so you can send as many emails as you want.
Yes.
But when we talk about things like this, what's clicking in your mind from a format standpoint? We're going to disseminate these white paper or videos or whatever it is. How do we get them out to people?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the call today. I really appreciate, and I appreciate all of your ideas. I think they're great. I'm taking lots of notes, and we'll definitely look into the options that we have available. As far as what has seemed to work in the past, I can tell you that the commission, so the staff have offered kind of monthly. So what we do is we distribute an article. For example, we will do something on, we have one coming out about, Vanessa, what's the article that we're currently working on that you guys are reviewing? I'm so sorry, it's just blanking in
That
my
I
mind.
keep not turning into escalation clauses.
Escalation clauses. For example,
escalation.
escalation clauses.
Yes.
That came from a commissioner who wrote into us and said, hey, we think that this is something that we should talk about. And so we wrote up an article, we reviewed something that was older, we're updating it. What we will typically do is distribute that in a digital format that's written out. We'll show it on our website as well as share it on social media on both platforms that we regularly update, which is Facebook and Twitter. And then in addition, we typically do some sort of video interaction where we have the staff subject matter expert on the topic available to do some sort of live session, whether it's on Facebook or lately we've been doing Teams where we let anyone call in and talk to us and ask their questions and get further information. We review in detail verbally that topic. And then in addition, we record that and reshare it on social media on YouTube. So, and then on Facebook and Twitter as well. We try to evaluate we try to distribute all of this information in all those different spectrums so that we're reaching people in the medium that they choose to be reached in. So if they want it in a newsletter once a month, they're going to get that opportunity. If they want it to go be on the website and then go look for it, they're going to get that opportunity. Or if they want to see it in video format on social media, it's going to be there as well. So we are trying to make that happen. I think our challenge is that you can only bring a horse to water kind of topic. Like we can only distribute it so much, but we have to get the agents and brokers interested in those topics. If that's a way of answering for you.
Christine, how is that measured? How are you looking at the metrics? How is that going out? I honestly have never seen a video from Trek. So
okay. Yeah, so so on Facebook and Twitter and on YouTube, we do track views, interactions, shares, and then what I typically do is make a recommendation on future content based on interaction with those videos. For example, right now we have 28,000 followers on Facebook, and on Twitter it's smaller. I'm going to look it up while I'm talking to you. But we do have a good amount of following on social media that we have about 1,060 followers on Twitter. So I do track those metrics. And then in addition, we use metrics on our website to look at what content is accessed and how often, and we review that content as well to ensure that we're displaying the right stuff in the right location. And we actually just did a usability study on our website to get that information in detail to the commission.
Has there ever been a push to get more followers?
Define how you mean push, because we are.
I mean, have you ever advertised to members, or I mean, just kind of going out there and even doing sponsored ads to the public? I mean, any of it?
In the past, no. To answer your question, no, we've never done any paid advertisement or, you know, I'm sure, Leslie, I think you're pretty savvy on social media and advertising, but in order to break that algorithm to get seen in people's feeds, typically now you do have to spend money to do that. We do not currently do that. All of our contact and is done organically. They call it organic growth, where people would just find us and then see our information, and the algorithm determines that they're interested in our information and would see it in their feed. So if that's something that you guys want to look into.
Would you be open to, like, in some of the Trek emails, like putting videos or getting people to sign up for Facebook, do some sort of competition or do something different, creative, out of the box to get more followers in order to push our message?
I absolutely am completely open to those ideas. I'm happy to look into our options and see what might work for other agencies as well. I think those ideas are great. We do share our videos on our website, and then, for example, the Coffee with Commission, which has been very well received after our commission meetings. We do share those videos on the website and then also in the newsletter. The video is not embedded in the newsletter. and I'm thinking that's what you're referring to. It's a link to the video and a headline that says you can see the video
Right.
on our website.
Yeah. I'm not talking as much about meetings. That's too long. We're not going to engage people that long. We need short and sweet that are engaging and get the point across quickly.
Right. And we have shared in the past some really quick videos, in particular ones that are starring our very own Tony Slagle on when we had some updates on what was it? IBS and consumers, Tony, I think that's what it was. I can't remember. But we did do those. They were received, but I think that you know, we don't currently have a ton of bandwidth right now and budget to do a lot of that. Now, I have done some research and plan to discuss further with you guys some options about using really great tools that are now available to us, like Canva and Promo, that kind of create these marketing videos fairly quickly and easily. So that's an option and definitely something that we can look into for you guys.
Yeah, I think some of the stuff like HAR does and some of the local associations a good guide because they really get their message out there.
And absolutely, HAR is an example that is one that I strive to hopefully reflect one day. But yeah, they have a great team, and absolutely, I'll do my research to see if we can reflect any more of their stuff.
Awesome, thank you. Bob's hands up too.
Okay, and thank you, Christine, for all the great information. And I understand the comment Chance made about the RDR, but to kind of follow up with Leslie, those of us who really want to know, and I missed all kinds of, you just mentioned the escalation clause. I'm not sure, is that already out? Is that about to be out?
No, it's going to be the featured content for next month.
Okay, so if you had some type of a communication summary from TREC saying, here are the communications that we have available, here's what they do, here's the purpose, here's how you access them. So when I get on the TREC website, I have a quick click there and it tells me, you know, here's how I get all this information, not just in the little search icon, but specifically directed to communication, because there are a lot of us, and a lot of my agents, I say, well, it's on TREC. I said, oh, really? Where is it there? So something like that would kind of guide us and direct us, those who want to know. That would really be helpful at least for me. I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm taking lots of notes, I promise. And I'm going to get as much research back to you guys as I can.
And Christine is a team of one. So I think this is really helpful for her to hear all of this stuff. I'm going to be the downer on some of this, which is there are some state prohibitions on things we can do and not do, but we will cover that internally. So I say, you know, keep with the ideas and the topics and everything that you're giving us. It's super helpful, but Christine and I will have to meet after and I'll have to be like, well, here's what you can't do. But I'll try and have a lot of here's what you can't do.
Christine, so not to put you on the spot and ask for a direct answer on something, but do you track open rate on the TREC Advisor email? And if so, yes. Is that industry standard or is that?
It's actually well above. I think the last time I looked at the stats, we do regular reporting as well as I do typically once a year report for the commission on this. I believe it was something like 30%, which is extremely high. Like
that's 100 times higher than the average.
Yes. So to me, and again, I'm open to hearing what your thoughts are on that. It does seem to be that we're presenting content that people want to see, you know, and then it's how do we get above and beyond that is what I'm hearing. So, but yes, the open rate on that is great. And the tool that we use to deliver our newsletter is really so helpful and allows us to see a lot of really good detail like that. So I'm happy to provide that for you anytime.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Is there any way to get those metrics? Like when we get our commission reports about calls and whatever, can we start getting those metrics added?
I'm sure that Vanessa would be happy to note that, and I would be happy to provide it, but that's not really my call. I can see if I can get that information to you as however Vanessa and the staff choose to have that information to you. But yes, we have it available, and anytime, Leslie, that you have any questions or want to talk in detail, I'm happy to provide whatever.
Awesome, thanks. It would just be interesting to see if it goes up, goes down, or what's going on.
And I can tell
yes.
you over the last couple of years, we have seen a fairly steady increase, specifically on organic growth in all of our platforms. We always see a great increase. We see good engagement. We share regular content. But again, there is this hurdle of the advertising, really these social media platforms, in order to break that algorithm, to get into people's feed, you really have to boost your content. And in order to do that, you're paying for it. And that's a whole other level of.
Right. But I'm talking about emails too, and seeing what people are looking at or not looking at, and seeing how we can improve.
I can work with Christine on that. I know she typically will do an annual report. We're going to see some of that at the workshop as well. But I think your idea on, maybe that becomes part of the quarterly meeting reports. I like that. We do that in many other things. So, we'll look at that for sure.
And this might be something of a silly suggestion, but maybe some A/B testing on email subject.
We actually,
Trek Advisor is boring.
The tool that
but if you said, hey, how do you write an escalation clause? Somebody might click on that.
You don't.
Right,
I know.
That's
a great idea.
That's why they'll open it.
Right, that's why they'll open it, because they want to know how to.
And just to let you know, the tool that we have for GovDelivery does allow for that. We would need to, again, purchase a different product from GovDelivery in order to allow for A/B testing. But I would be happy to look into those options for you guys as well.
Okay.
Bob, is your hand still up?
No, I'm sorry. I forgot to take it down. Thank you.
Awesome. I think this next topic is kind of going to bring what we were talking about together and kind of flows with this. It's how to improve communication that we currently have. And Yasmin's not here. And so she said the licensing email reminders are great. Electronic communication works great. It's very hard to get someone on the phone for quick questions, renewing licenses and classes, which I think our phone rates have been pretty good.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. We averaged last month about a 3-minute hold time, and that was the largest hold time we've had in many months. And the reason for that hold time was related to what many of you know about, which is where we inadvertently expired all of the business entities, and our engagement went up 10-fold, really 100-fold, just with all of the questions as to, what's happening.
That's how you do outreach.
Yeah. Call in.
This is pretty much what we talked about. Mine was just being more visible, monitor engagement with communication, more analytics, who's opening, what are they reading, etc. The website, which is definitely a work in progress, easier to navigate and understand, training videos, maybe password protected would monitor engagement and kind of keep emails updated when people move, because I know there was a problem with that, or somebody mentioned it before. Partnership with local associations, which we've all talked about, and the Coffee with Commission has been great, and it just could be promoted, a little better, because, and that's just going back to the reach. Bob, you want to talk about yours?
Yeah, just briefly. And many of you remember back in the old days when you had a problem and somebody said, well, you need to call Trek. Everybody laughed because it was a joke, because you couldn't get a hold of Trek. And today's improvement on response time is almost a miracle. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, you can now confidently say, if you have a question for Trek, you need to call them. And we know now they'll get a call. Well, that same communication situation now, because we've got such an incredibly different situation, if I had good communication for Trek saying, here are the different things that we can tell you about, here's the situation, summary of all that. That would be incredibly helpful, because I think we're in a new world now. I think most of the good realtors out there understand the value of the resource of Trek and want to interact with Trek and get information. So I think we've got a very good environment that, as Trek makes it easier and better for us to get information, I think that would be really helpful. So if we can do that and give me some good information, hey, yeah, here's where it is, here's what it is, here's how you get it, that would be wonderful.
Awesome. Holly? can't hear you. There you are.
Okay. Okay. So again, it's just the outreach. That's the main thing. The usability as far as user interface on the website gets a little bit confusing about where to go. Although the Google search is phenomenal, but I think that under like FAQs, having it labeled so that you can, you know, if it's property management or if it's how to fill out a form or something like that, having those links there would be very beneficial. But that's really it. I mean, it is much improved from when I began 17 years ago. But I do feel like we can improve on user friendliness for the website.
Great. Thank you, Bill.
My thought on this this question was really I took the first question to be what the content is and the priorities would be. This second one I thought was more in how do you deliver the message to folks. And one of the crazy ideas that I had was maybe to create some kind of a Trek ambassadors program that would be sort of made up by, you know, different trade realtors, maybe brokers, agents, folks that aren't in trade organizations, some staff of the trade organizations, maybe some of the brokerage offices, and sort of create a, you know, a way to get the information on a local basis. Politics is local, but also information is local. And it would seem to me that if we could figure out a way to have liaisons or resources, or I call them ambassadors, basically interacting with our local areas, that would be a neat way on behalf of Trek, and it would be all volunteers and part of maybe a separate committee or separate task force. And that may give us a bigger reach into you know, all the people that are down there. And rather than, and where Trek can be providing the content, they can be providing the resources. Maybe we can generate folks that are in the industry to act as our delivery source and our you know transporting that content down to the sources that need it. And then they can also be a resource for pulling the information back. Trek, I think, should be really a regulatory body and a supervisory body rather than an active you know, content producer, and I mean content you know, deliver and worker, because we got a lot of content out there. We just got to get it to the people. Just a crazy idea.
Brian, you have anything?
I don't have anything to add. I am in agreement with the comments made and encouraged by this kind of conversation.
Pam?
Yeah, I'm with Brian. I agree with everything too. I mean, so I don't have anything to add.
Ty?
Yes, I actually really like the ambassador idea. I think that's great. You know, the Chamber of Commerce does the same kind of idea. They have an ambassador. Every kind of segment of that has an ambassador, and they go to different events. They go to you know, networking events and show up just to show face and interact with the community. And it would be just an extension of maybe a committee or something along those lines. But I like the idea of a volunteer ambassador program. I think that's a great idea, actually.
Perfect. Chance?
Yeah, I agree with most of what everybody said. I like the idea of partnering with the different trade associations, whether that's Texas Realtors or some of the commercial groups, local associations, to provide the content to them and have them help distribute it. So, you know, they see it in a newsletter from their local, they see it in a Trek Advisor email. You're getting hit with it from different angles. You're more likely to see it.
Perfect. So to conclude our outreach, we talked about Trek being more visible in communities. And if Trek was more visible in communities or local associations, office meetings, et cetera, do you think it would increase competency and broker responsibility? Yasmin said absolutely. Holly said yes. I said, I think Trek needs to be more proactive versus reactive. More visibility could increase competency and expectations. If agents are more aware of expectations, the type of complaints that are filed, how to avoid the complaint being filed against them, etc., the number of complaints and errors may decrease. On the flip side, this could also lead to more complaints that would help clean up the profession and help Trek pinpoint where more education and training is needed. Bob, did you want to talk about yours?
Well, and I agree with what you're saying, Leslie. And to me, having these things on local associations, so forth, helps with what I think is really important. That's the relationships. And that's been brought up several times, is we have relationships and we see people at Trek as real people and we relate to them. I think it improves the whole thing. I think when brokers understand who they're dealing with there, I think they'll be more receptive, more competent. So I agree with what you're saying. I think, seeing Trek people, seeing that, Vanessa Burgess is not just this lady up in the sky who's, big attorney person who's in charge of everything. She's actually a real person. Same with Abby Lee and Chelsea and so forth. I think it's a great idea for us to be able to relate to them.
Awesome, thank you. If you're on the call, can you make sure you're muted if you're not speaking?
You're coming to my house?
I believe there's somebody that just got on the call that.
I'm definitely not coming to your house.
Amber can mute him too. I'm sure she's working on it. There we go.
Thank you. Okay, Holly, do you want to elaborate on yours? Unmute.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, good. Yes, I think that as far as outreach and that sort of the ambassador idea is amazing. That was a great idea. So yay. But I really like that. I think that, and we are in different locations, so we could jump in and do some of that. I also feel like Legal 1 and 2, a lot of the information that has been brought up could go through that avenue as well. So maybe even in the new, because it's going to come out this next year due to legislation, if there was a way to do a mock trial or, hearing during that might be a really good idea, or have the video for something like that, because I do instruct Legal 1 and 2, and a lot of these items are broached in that every year, every 2 years. So that may be something we could think about throwing in there potentially. But yeah, that's all I have to add.
Awesome.
Can I make a comment on Holly's comment?
Yeah.
Or suggestions as well? I really think, Holly, you're on to something. I actually was putting together about a year ago, right before the pandemic really took off. I was putting together a mock trial with a judge, an actual judge in Tarrant County. He agreed to do this thing. I got a couple of attorneys together, and we were going to put together a kind of this idea of maybe a real estate battle where somebody violated some code or ethics violation or something like that with the board. And we had this thing really going. We were going to use, the city of Fort Worth was going to let us use an area and things like this. It was really pretty cool, but I like the idea. And we had so many people who wanted to attend this thing because they're so in the dark about what will happen. They don't know. And a lot of the agents really don't understand how serious it is if you do get a Trek complaint and you ignore it, or you inadvertently did something. They just don't grasp the consequences. And I think you hit the nail on the head.
It's always a point when I'm teaching Legal 1, Legal 2, it's always a point that we make is you can tell by the fines and the penalties who cooperated and who didn't.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Brian, you have anything to add? Pam? Ty, anything else?
No, I love what y'all are saying. This is amazing.
Thank you. We're glad you're here. Chance, your turn.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Other than that was great.
Okay, so you want to wrap this all up, Chance, now that you're the chair?
Sure. Yeah, I think that we need to have a lot of notes here, and I think we need to take them and kind of start to put some structure behind both topic and format on getting this out to the universe. That way the commissioners have it for their workshop. So we'll work on that after this meeting.
Awesome.
Thank you for the work on doing that, Leslie.
Sure. Glad to help.
All right. Do we want to go into number 6? Okay. We're going to go into item number 6, which is the update and possible recommendation regarding the calculation of active experience points.
And I think, so I'll just lead in a little bit. Leslie, I mentioned, is going to cover this. Well, Leslie and Denise are going to cover this together. Some of this, I think we're a little ahead on ourselves. In your materials, what's actually being shown right now, we've got some corrected versions of that, but I think probably best, right, Denise, to start with the actual form. So what I will say is what we put together, I think the numbers used were based on your past recommendation and not on what we currently have. And so Denise is going to present some different materials and run through some questions with you with the hope of, I don't know that we anticipate taking something to the commission in August. It'll more likely be November before this group has an official recommendation. So Denise will share some updated materials, and I apologize for that. I should have caught that and I did not, the numbers issue. With that said, Leslie and Denise, take it away.
Denise, you want to go ahead? I think we are using the 360 points versus 720.
I can't see that far away.
This is just a revised version from what was presented in the materials, just because we went a little too far down that other path. And so we've made that correction to the 360. And so this version of the form, this is very similar to what was provided in the materials, but it's got a couple of notes because there were a lot of contributions and not everybody, was totally on the same page as far as how this form should look. So I do want to point out that we did clean up the instructions. We cleaned up that language. There was a lot of discussion at the last meeting about what that sentence meant, in performing at least one transaction per year for at least 4 out of the last 5 years. We also, reorganized the way the calculation is made. It was a little confusing to have points per transaction listed up front and then listing the number of transactions each year. So this seemed to flow better. This will work better as well for my staff who's reviewing these forms and processing the applications, and more importantly, the applicant filling it out. It just flows a little more logically to count up the transactions and then multiply them by the point value. So what we did here, and I'm not sure if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, just because the internet is a little bit slow here still. So down at the bottom on the calculations, we did, for purposes of simplification, just drop a digit from the point values without changing what the point values are per category, just to make it a total of 360 versus 3,600. Then, cleaning up a lot of those instructions at the top, some of that information was duplicative, and there's still a question of where to mention the transaction identification list. So I moved it up here in this draft to the center of page 1, but if that doesn't make sense, we can reorganize that. But I think what I think the group should weigh in on are some of these questions that Leslie posed here on the actual form that I'm presenting.
Okay, I see I misspelled something. So just in the first part, and these were just thoughts off the top of my head and looking on other websites and whatever else. So we're coming into an age that you see more teams and co-agents, and several of the other states have kind of qualifications on what counts as your transaction, because it can't count as your transaction in somebody else's transaction as well. So, and then if it goes under a team leader's name, how does that count? So I don't know if y'all want to address that situation. That was part of my question up at the top, that the broker would have to initial or verify whose transaction it was when it is stated in their experience report. And moving down, I've thought just like number 6 and 7 were kind of duplicated and they could be kind of combined together. And I didn't know if that transaction identification list was kind of just buried in there and you really didn't know what to do, because we're trying to make it easy for the lowest common denominator. And then we go into, I guess, the count anyways. And then do you think property management should have its own little category in order to list it out under, instead of in each kind of residential, commercial, that be its own separate thing? And then going into, where you see executed lease, even on both residential and commercial, it also says new, renewal, or extension. I just didn't know your thoughts about renewal or extension, because that's usually done by an amendment. It's not really working on the lease itself, or the whole transaction. It's not doing all the paperwork and everything else. Trying to go through this really quick. So when you get to commercial, or, I mean, any of it, residential or commercial, where it says unimproved, I'm trying to go through. Oh, commercial where it says closed purchase or sale, and I'm like, should we have an unimproved and improved there? Because it seems like something that's improved is going to take a lot more work than unimproved. And then executed lease, I just went through. Property management, we just went through. And then farm and ranch, same thing, improved versus unimproved. Should that be separated out? The lease, same thing. And then, and then the brokerage team management delegated supervisor. Team managers aren't always the brokerage manager, so how should that be displayed there? So we would love thoughts on all of that.
So this is Brian, and I like the changes to the form, going back to where that's, you must complete and attach a separate spreadsheet, that transaction identification list. I know when I did my broker license application, I totally missed that. It was buried kind of on the bottom of the second page, so I like moving it up where you've got it as number 9 in the instructions. Going back to your brokerage team management or delegated supervisor, TREC already has that designation as either broker or designated supervisor. I don't know that a team lead needs to be there. If they're going to be designated a supervisor, then we already have that. We already have that trigger within the TREC, and so as long as they're delegated a supervisor in TREC, then I think they can count those months, if that makes sense.
So you're saying you wouldn't put the team management in there?
No, I'd say if the broker wants to designate a team lead as a delegated supervisor, then go ahead and do that and have it recorded in TREC, and not have anything more confusing than that.
Denise, I don't know this. Can you have more than one, or is there any rule on how many delegated supervisors you could have within a company?
Nope.
No, there's no restriction. The,
Technically, if you wanted all of your agents to take broker responsibility as part of their continuing education, you could delegate all of them.
Right, okay. When I was looking at other states, going back to the top part about teams and whatever, some of the states said something like, when multiple licensees have been a part of a transaction, and in parentheses, co-agents or teams, it is up to the broker or licensed supervisor to divide the points among each licensee that was a participant in the transaction. So that's how some of them read.
I think that's a good thing to look at because there's a lot of buyer's agents and listing agents. So I like that idea.
Well, I think, okay, I'm gonna put my 2 cents in here then. My thought process is if you join a team and you're putting everything underneath one person's name, I don't think you should get credit for it. And I think that should be a negative about being on a team. That's my personal opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, because if it's going under somebody else's name, they're taking liability for it. Why should you get credit for that transaction? Makes no sense.
I agree.
Okay, can I comment on that? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, you can.
This is Bob. I understand the concept there. However, depending on how the team is structured, many teams, and I have several, they require the team lead agent for statistical purposes to be the one that shows up there, but they're not the one that does all the work. They're not the one that interacts with the client directly.
But that's no,
and the agent that actually does all the work is not necessarily the agent who shows up. Now, I understand from a liability standpoint, that's a challenge because what Trek needs to see in that contract, who's going to be responsible. But I don't think that someone, just because the team structure requires the lead agent to be on all the contracts and everything for statistical purposes, I don't think it means we can't give credit to the person who actually ended up literally doing all the work.
Oh, okay, now I hear you. I'm gonna make one more comment. I think this is the easiest way to look at it. We didn't force anyone to join a team. It should be a negative consequence of joining a team because they're not taking full responsibility for that transaction, whether the structure is unique to that brokerage or not. I think it's, personally, I think that if you take action and you put together a transaction, it's all your transaction, then it's your transaction. If you did the transaction, you put under somebody else's name, that is your choice.
Yeah, it also goes back to something right before the contract change, because I know they put team name into the contracts. I think the agent name and then the team lead team name could also help with this if you have it all in there, because you really don't have the name of who's overseeing the team in those contracts.
Well,
I tend to agree with Bob on this, that a buyer's agent who wants to get a broker's license ought to be able to do it, even if all the production's not in their name.
I mean, and on the flip side, this team manager or the team lead is getting all of this credit, so to speak, and who knows what they're doing themselves. I mean, it's all,
in a lot of cases, nothing.
Yeah.
Right, that I think
it's a vicious cycle.
It is, and I think that's why I think that we have to choose a side, and I think that it needs to go on the person. I think there's a lot of teams out there right now. This is my personal opinion. It has been my personal experience that it is very difficult to communicate with team leads.
Yes.
Yeah, but I will tell you that I'm finding communication to be more and more difficult with certain entities, basically. I'll just keep it at that. But I will say that my thought process is that there has to be negative. We can't just cater to everybody, and there has to be a negative. There has to be a negative in place, and there has to be a positive in place. If you're a team lead and you're managing people, great. And you're taking all the credit for everything. You're getting a bigger cut. You're taking the liability. The other person's taking less of a cut. They're doing all the work, but that's their choice.
Yeah,
know if
I've
that's-
also had situations that people have called because they've done the work and then they call when the contract's already in title and say, hey, change the name in MLS to this name.
Right, yes.
All right, so I've got Holly with her hand up. Let's go to Holly.
Thank you. So my input on this is you boil down to who's on the contract. And the way that the contract's written now, it states the agent that's working that and the team that they're on. So I think that that would be very easy to define and delineate who gets credit for that transaction because they're the ones that wrote the contract. So that may not be as hard of a thing. And I get the not giving them as much credit. I understand that because I don't have teams in my office for that very reason. But for those that do, somebody that wants to improve and become a broker, I don't think that they should necessarily be punished because they fall under a team if that's how they're getting their experience.
Bob Baker.
Okay, and I understand we're all are coming from different sets of experiences with the whole team situation and the range even within a brokerage of how teams are structured is significant, what the split is and how they do it. I agree with Holly, I don't think we should create a negative because someone's on a team. There are a lot of very good, positive reasons why we have a team. In addition to the brokerage can sometimes benefit financially from teams. The reality is, and I joke about this in my agent, I say, when you talk to the lead agent, the listing agent, the lead agent on the other side of the transaction, take a picture. Because you're right, it doesn't happen that often. You're dealing with team members, and that's kind of the nature of it. But I don't think we get to punish these people because they put together a team, because we're all going to have different sets of experiences. And frankly, my experiences in my two offices, teams have worked out very well. It's been good for the consumer. It's been good for the agents. If it's done right, the single greatest challenge I still have is making sure they understand that as a broker, I'm responsible for everything they do. So please pay attention. And that gets to be a little bit of a challenge, but I think, we need to find a good way. And as Leslie pointed out, because we have team name on the contracts now, we have that ability to make some distinction. And I think if we can allow the broker to say, okay, here's this person, he participated and they should get half the credit or whatever, I think we get to do that. Just my thoughts.
Thank you, Bob. Bill Roth.
Thank you. My feeling sort of echoes a little bit what other folks are saying. It seems to me that what we're trying to do is encourage folks who want to be brokers to have experience, and co-oping with senior people, with other people in their organization, seems to be the path that we're trying to encourage. And I certainly wouldn't penalize anybody for partnering up or sharing the workload on a transaction. In fact, I think it should be encouraged that they do that. That's number one. Number two, it seems to me that that in this form, the broker does have to still sort of certify or authenticate that that the experience was designation was appropriate. So I think it's up to the broker who's signing off on this thing to internally work out a deal with whoever it is to say how much you participated or not. And I don't think it has to do with whose name is on the contract or how much money you made or how much water you were carrying. It's something to find out what it is. And I think that's something that we shouldn't be concerned about. I think that's a local or an office issue that needs to be handled independently. But I certainly would encourage people to partner up. We don't deal with teams. We just participate. We have multiple people working on deals because they're complicated and there's a lot of moving parts. So everybody gets credit when they're working on something, to whatever extent the broker in the office should determine that issue.
Thank you, Bill. I tend to agree with that. I don't think we should punish people for being on a team. You know, I hate to try to really dumb this down and simplify it as much as humanly possible, but I feel like there ought to be an element of trust with the broker attestation that this credit has been earned. Any other thoughts we want to go through on here?
Chance, I think we need to talk about the improved and unimproved.
Okay, let's talk about unimproved and unimproved. Hey, Bill, I'm going to call on you if you don't mind.
Sure.
Especially in the commercial category, if you could comment to whether you think there should be a delineation between improved or versus unimproved.
Well, there should be a delineation, but I think it's already put in here. Unimproved property is really basically land. And so under the category of farm and ranch, I think they've included unimproved land in that category as a transaction, as a category for transactions. So I think it's sort of, my first reaction was, where's unimproved property? And then I found out that they put it in farm and ranch, which I think is an okay place to put it. But again, doing a transaction, a land transaction, can sometimes be much more cumbersome than an improved transaction. And again, the idea is not how complicated the transaction is. It's going through the process of doing a transaction. It's understanding a contract. It's dealing with the people. It's understanding the rules. It's not how complicated or how easy or how much time it takes. It's about showing that you've had an experience and that you are getting credit for knowing what you're doing, whether it's a simple transaction or a complicated transaction. And I think that's so I wouldn't penalize also whether it's a land deal versus an improved multi-tenant, bigger deal. The broker and the agent are serving a particular purpose, and to the extent that they're involved in that transaction, they should get the full experience credit if they can. I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah, my thought process being that if I'm a primarily commercial agent and I pick this form up knowing nothing about it, it's the first time that I've looked at it, and I look under the category of commercial and I don't see a differentiation between improved or unimproved, is that, or am I going to lump all of that into the closed purchase and sale category? Or
yeah, I think
that's the reason I asked.
I think to clarify it, it might be better to put unimproved. You got improved and unimproved. Probably should go up to. It could actually be in both categories, because farm and ranch is unimproved land. And and so if you wanted to put unimproved land up there in the purchase or sale of improved or unimproved property, I don't think that would be inappropriate, and I don't think it has to be exclusive. It could be in both categories.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have thoughts on improved versus unimproved being differentiated?
If we're going to just, this is Ty Williams again. If we're going to just say that unimproved land goes underneath farm and ranch, I think a lot of people will be confused by that. So if we want to simplify, I think we just add a category under each section. Yeah. If it's, residential contract, commercial contract, whatever it is, unimproved property, I think people will look at it and say, well, it wasn't farm and ranch. I don't really.
It was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. I'm just confused. I think to eliminate confusion, I think that may be the thought process.
Do we need to have a delineation? I mean, does it matter?
Yes.
Probably not.
I think it probably does.
We've had a delineation in the past too.
And I would vote for identifying it in each category. I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay.
To clarify, just so we have some on the edits to the form, under the residential category, there is closed purchase or sale with improvements. and then closed purchase or sale
Unimproved.
unimproved. So is that, I just want to make sure I'm hearing the direction of the group, that we would
We'd have
add
similar
and separate them. So on the residential category, they have different point values.
It shouldn't.
If that's the path we're going.
I don't think it should have.
I don't think so either. I think the point value should be the same.
They should be
think
the
we can-
same.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so they've been different on the residential side for improved versus unimproved, and those changes were just carried over to the proposed form. So if we're gonna make, I just want to make sure
Motion for
we're
that.
capturing all the changes that are being recommended.
Do you need a motion for that?
Well, why don't we go through a bunch of them first, because there's going to be a lot of questions, I think.
I think we're talking about the format of the form, and we kind of, sounds to me like we put off conversation about point values.
Right.
I like the idea of separating them because they're different contracts. So if it's a different, you have an improved contract and you have an unimproved contract, and therefore I think they should be delineated on the form.
Okay, Brian, do you think that they should be different point values or same point values?
Well, if we want to talk point values, I think everything, we've had that discussion about increasing the experience requirements. I don't think that an unimproved contract is of less value than an improved contract. I agree with Bill. It's an experience and it should be the same point value.
Okay, is there anybody who thinks otherwise? The chair will entertain a motion to adjust the point value to where improved and unimproved have the same point values on this form.
I'll second your motion.
It's not a motion. I can't make a motion.
Okay.
Brian will make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. That was easy. Okay, so Denise, just so we're all going from the same place, we're going to delineate improved versus unimproved in each category. Improved and unimproved will be the same point value.
Okay, so that will be a change to residential and then just a new duplicated line item on
Together.
of the other categories. And again, just for clarity, the unimproved residential will be bumped up from 5 points per transaction to 30 points per transaction.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to go through also, now that I just lost my place, the renewals and extensions for leases?
Yes, let's talk about renewals and extensions and leases. I'll share my personal thought is a renewal or extension ought not count.
Agreed.
I agree.
Agreed.
But I will defer once again on the commercial side of things because that's a different scope of work than a promulgated form for a residential rental. So if somebody would like to comment on that, I think it's worth listening to for sure.
And again, I'm not trying to be, I'm trying to be respectful of everybody. It really is as much work to do a renewal and an extension as it is to do sometimes the original lease. And the truth is that again, what we're talking about is the experience of interacting with your people, understanding the rules, making, getting the documentation done properly and handling yourself in a transaction. And I'm telling you, sometimes making a renewal or an extension is really cumbersome. My issue here would be, one of my comments was going to be that renewal or extension is sort of the same word, it seems like to me. And so I would maybe what we say new or amendment, or maybe say an amended contract or lease, or add the word amendment. that might be, give folks a little bit more clarification for that issue. It's just a suggestion.
See, and I think on the residential side, it's print a form from zip forms and send it out for signatures. It takes 5 seconds.
Right.
There's really not a lot to a residential renewal. So that's why I wanted to hear the commercial side of it, because I know that y'all's are far more complicated.
Well, it can be. It doesn't mean it is. So we do those.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, some of them are very easy on the flip side. So just being realistic, they're not all cumbersome, and you don't always need an attorney to write up a commercial contract or commercial lease, which we don't half of the time, but half the time you do. So maybe a reduction in point value for an extension, and we meet in the middle.
With all due respect, I wouldn't support that. I think you shouldn't get, again, it's about the experience. It's about doing the transaction. If it's easy and you can do it fast, you still did it. And I'm not saying that everything is difficult. And we do have forms, and we're trying to make it easy for people to do their business. But there's still a lot of moving parts that it's not just the paper that's getting produced, it's the work and the experience, the interaction, and the knowledge base, and the the ability to be in the middle of the deal, which is what we're trying to verify here. And I think that whether it's a 1-page document or a 50-page document is not the issue. It's a question of, did the guy and gal do their job in getting this transaction processed?
Anybody else have thoughts on that? They'd like to see it stay, see it go?
It's Bob.
Go for it, Bob.
I agree with Bill. I think it is the transaction. I don't think we presume they're all easy or all complicated. Some of them are easy, some of them hitting a couple switches and moving on, but I think the interaction, the knowledge, sometimes it's easy because the agents are really good at what they do and they know how to do it. So I think that interaction and completing the transaction, regardless of what it is, renewal or new, I think they should be getting the credit. Just my thought.
Very good. Anyone else want to jump in?
It's Brian. I think commercial leases and extensions and renewals should get the credit. I don't think so on residential.
This is Holly. I agree with Brian on that. I think that commercial, absolutely, but on residential and farm and ranch, not. The renewal and extension don't need to be on there.
Okay.
I'll agree.
I agree.
I'll defer to the group.
If that seems to be the consensus, the chair would entertain a motion to that effect.
I make that motion. How about that?
I second.
All right, so for point of clarification, it has been moved and seconded that renewal or extension would be removed from residential and farm and ranch / unimproved land and only remain in the commercial category. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. There we go. Moving right along. Well, let's talk about what's next. Is there anything else on this form?
I've got some comments on the form if it's still open for discussion.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, and on the first paragraph of the form, that the sentence where it says for calculation purposes, I'm not really sure that that's clear to me, where it says that it should be, and if you can pull up the form, go back up, where it says for calculation, the experience should be listed in reverse chronological order. Go back up to before number 1.
All the way to the top of the form.
Yeah, that last sentence before Leslie's comment about what about teams. I'm not sure that's clear to me. What does that mean? Should be listed in reverse chronological order. Do we need that, or do we even need that sentence?
My understanding is that it would go from, if you filed today, then year 1 would be the yesterday through July of 2020. Year 2 would be 2020 to 2019. Am I wrong or am I right?
You're correct.
I could totally be wrong.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. If it's not clear to you, it's not clear to me. I don't think it's clear. And it sounds like to me that it's got to be, we're talking about the 4 years, anything during the previous 4 years during the previous 5 years is what we need to be listing. And they can put the dates in there, and it doesn't have to be in a particular order, I don't think. In other words, to me, it just is confusing a little bit. That's one comment. And again, let me just, the number 5 on this, I'm not really I don't know what supplement B is, and I apologize. I didn't do the research to pull it up, but is there experience credit after the application is filed that is different than what we're talking about here? Because this stuff is education, is experience before, for the period before the application is filed. Is that correct?
That's correct. So part of the licensing staff review will be to provide feedback to that applicant, whether it's, that they need more education hours or that some of the experience is lacking. There's a separate form that they would need to complete and submit for any experience that they're claiming after they've filed an application. So it's not utilized often. This is why we presented supplement A. We can copy those changes to the supplement B form, but that's only for additional experience being earned after the application has been filed, because the application is valid for 1 year. So there's plenty of opportunity for an applicant to gain experience after they've already applied.
So is it credit, and I'm asking for just clarification, do you get credit after the application is filed in some cases?
You can, yes.
So Bill, let's say that you put in an application and after review by staff, they came back to you and said, you need 2 more sales transactions. Supplement B would be the form on which you would turn in those 2 sales transactions to achieve that credit.
But it's for experience still earned for the period prior to the date of the application filing, not after the date of the filing of the application. Is that correct?
No, sir, it's not. It would be after the application is filed, because the application is active for 1 year. So if Trek staff came back to you and said you need 2 more sales, you would essentially have 12 months to get those and turn in supplement B, showing that experience for your application to be approved.
Okay, and thanks for clarifying. So you do get, so there is a way to get additional experience credit even after the application is filed. So all the experience does not have to occur within the previous 5 years. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that is what they're saying, because I think the point of it is if somebody doesn't have, maybe they're missing 12 hours or something, they send it back, they've got, their file filled out, they can go back and their application is good for 1 year from the date of submittal, correct?
That I need to clarify that. I'm going to pull up the.
That's what they were saying, I believe.
Yeah, this is regarding experience, not education or CLE, right?
The application, would some of your transactions possibly fall off if it took you enough time?
Yeah, it's a rolling 5 years.
Right.
It is a rolling.
So you
5 years. That is
you may have to update your transactions because the rolling time, you may have had those transactions far enough back where you lose some of those transactions. Therefore, you must use supplement B to update those transactions as well.
Okay, and again, it's just for clarification, whatever is the way it should be done. It was just not, it wasn't clear to me. On the
Before we move on, I think I can better answer the question. I believe that the way the rule language is written, it says for experience claimed after an application has been filed, and it could just be this wording of receive credit for experience earned after the application is filed. So we can make this edit. Of course, I'd want, Vanessa and Abby to double check that and make sure that that's correct. But I'm thinking that's the cause of the main source of confusion with that line.
Right, that would probably make it clear if you just put claimed. Yep.
Right.
And then on the transaction identification list, the previous form just had transaction date, category, transaction type, and property address. I think MLS number and roll-in transaction is inappropriate to add to that. First of all, commercial deals don't have MLS numbers, and a lot of deals aren't through MLS. And to make that a requirement, I don't think is correct. And then the role of the transaction is the person is saying that it's their transaction and they're getting authentication. So, and I don't know what you would put there. It was my deal. Anyway, I don't think it's appropriate to put those two columns. I think are superfluous and should be eliminated.
Okay, I'll say one thing about it. I agree with you on MLS 100%. That needs to come off because not every agent is a member of the MLS. They're also not realtors, not every one of them. Roll-in transaction, I think, is a good idea though, because if you're just supervising the roll and we're verifying that, maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's my thought process. I think that's why it's there, but Chance, maybe.
My thought process on roll-in transaction would be we need to give them roles and say, pick one, almost like a drop-down menu, right? And I know we can't do that on a form like this, but I feel like you're going to get a million different answers written into that. And what should and shouldn't count.
Is it verified? You go through and verify?
No, only if there's a complaint or,
I mean, what if I'm a licensed assistant? Should I get credit for anything? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Leslie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, the only reason I added MLS number and somebody could put NA or non-MLS or whatever it is just to keep people honest. Because if they think that you're maybe going to look or you're going to ask for certain information, then maybe, it would just make people be a little bit more honest than they are these days.
Could be MLS number if applicable.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point.
Again, folks.
MLS says.
Again, folks, you've got a check and balance here because you have a person submitting their stuff. They've got documentation that's being attached, and you got a broker signing off on this thing. We got to sort of be trustworthy. I mean, people are basically honest, and I think you got to give credit to people, and you don't want to create a form or a process where somebody could get kicked out for a technicality or for a mistake or for some kind of a silliness. And also, let's not make it difficult for people to comply or make it confusing for people to comply. We just want to know what they're doing, and we just want to be able to refer and keep track of this stuff. And so again, I'm not on a soapbox. I'm just saying, let's not make it more difficult than it needs to be.
What do we want to do here?
I mean, we can see that.
What did the Russians say? They said, trust but verify.
Exactly.
Okay, do we want to entertain a motion on whether or not we keep this, don't keep this?
My motion would be to eliminate both of those columns.
By both of those columns for specificity, we're talking about MLS number and roll-in transaction, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second? Seeing no second, motion is, there's no motion.
Now, you also realize it says you have to have the following information for each transaction. That's what it says there.
Right.
I think it was solved over here, though. We said if applicable.
Okay, well, then you need to put it in there.
Are you okay adding if applicable? I don't think we need a motion for that, so we'll just add that as an edit. What about roll-in transaction? Because no comments?
I mean, of course I'll comment if you need.
No, I don't need that.
I will.
What is the answer?
The last meeting, some of the documents.
What would be the correct answer there? And I'm not being silly about it. I really would want to know, what do you put there?
No, that was my comment earlier as well, is that you almost need to have a menu of choices. You're either boom, 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 or boom. And
Well, in the last meeting, when members of the group submitted, either marked up or typed up edits to this form, one of them was a list of 4 options for the roll-in transaction.
Okay.
But that it was proposed as a separate document, kind of like the inspection log where they fill out our form. What we've seen work really well for the broker applications is we ask them for a transaction identification list. A lot of them keep this information in some sort of software that you guys use that you can export it to Excel and just attach it with the application. And that works really well. And all we ask is it can be, it can have all this extra information that you want in there. We just need these elements to be included for the experience you're claiming. So in the previous version, when it was proposed as a separate form, there were 4 options listed for roll-in transaction. I'm worried about the slowness of my internet and switching to another PDF. I might lose this completely. So I'm just going to read off from the previous form. The options were 1, listing agent, 2, buyer/tenant agent, 3, property manager, and 4, brokerage manager/supervisor.
Perfect.
How would you do that here, though?
I guess we could specify, because if we're moving this after all the point categories, I mean, we can figure out the spacing. We might just, it won't be 2 little lines. We could maybe expand on that last column to say roll-in transaction and then list those.
Yeah.
That's what the group.
Sorry, I did not have the vision.
No, that's okay. I'm the form nerd, so it's okay.
if we gave you 4 choices, and those choices are listing agent, buyer's agent, property manager, or brokerage/delegated supervisor, do we feel like that's a comprehensive list?
Yes, because the buyer's agent would be a tenant agent as well. I feel like it's general enough.
I think so.
Okay. Then let's move forward with that. There we go. Anything else on this supplement A that we need to discuss?
Yeah, I've got a couple more things. Under property management, I'm not clear on all of the categories. Where it says property management, it says per property per year. Now, what does that mean? Does per property mean, is there supposed to be a number of properties there, or is that?
Yeah, I think you get 2.5 points per property per year. So this year you did 10 properties, you get 25 points.
If I'm managing 10 properties, I get 25 points.
Correct.
So should it say, okay. I mean, is it clear to everybody that that per means per property managed
Yes.
per year? Okay, if it is, that's fine. Okay. Then I did have questions as why the category points is different for different things, but the other thing, it seemed like to Leslie's point, there was some duplication in the first part of what the items are that we're putting in number 7. You've got a listing of all the documentation, and then in the certification, you've got that same listing there. I'm not saying it's bad to have it twice, but I just wanted to point out that it's sort of duplicated twice there.
So walk me through that again. I'm sorry.
In number 7, it lists all the different types of things that would be documents that would verify the examples of documentation. And then in this, under the certification page, that first paragraph of certification, it also provides the same list there too, in the first sentence.
Gotcha.
Again, I didn't know if you needed both places. Doesn't hurt to have it, but I just want to point out that it was in both places already.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you that it doesn't. It's one of those things that doesn't hurt to have.
Okay, that's fine.
Bob, you have your hand up?
I do. Back on the property management, and I thought we had some kind of a conversation before on this, where we talk about per property per year. Is this for an entire year, partial year, calendar year? What are we actually talking about here?
I think the assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, Denise or Chelsea, the assumption would be that it would be the rolling calendar year from date of application.
Okay, so does it have to be for an entire year where you get credit for it?
Well, not like a January through December, but looking back 5 years from date of application. Is that right, Denise?
Yes, I think the discussion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vanessa, that one of the previous meetings was the concern that we don't want people claiming it as a property management transaction each time they collect rent. And so that's why it was set up as, or worded that way, per property per year. But each year, to Chelsea's point, is that rolling year of experience going back the 5 years.
So even though it's less than a year, maybe you have one for a year and a half, do you get 2 years of credit there?
So the concern,
18-month property management situation.
So the concern you're bringing up is what if there's a 6-month lease versus what if there's an 18-month lease?
Yeah, partially. I mean, what we're having are tenants who are changing from being a tenant to buying the property they're in, which changes the whole lease term. So if it's not a full term of a lease, how does that impact on the property manager getting credit?
Again, I would suggest that the answer is that you take out that it doesn't matter how long you're managing the property during the year, you're managing a property, and that I'm not trying to be silly that it's 1 day, but the fact is that again we want the experience of a person dealing with the tenants, dealing with the property, paying the bills, taking care of things, and if they've got, and we're only giving them a few points credit anyway. It's not a real big amount of money, a big amount of experience that they're getting. But I would say that it should just say per property, and that should be it, because it's the designation of the transaction in every year tells you if you're going to have a property for that year. And
that helps me a lot to take away the per year,
Yeah,
You've got per property, because you're gonna have all kinds of rolling timelines.
right, exactly.
So I think that would help me in understanding the credit situation here.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to change that.
Well, I'd like for us to remove the per year part. That's what we're talking about here on that. That's just per
Okay.
property without the per year in there.
Second,
All right, and for point of, just to clarify, we're doing this across the board on all categories, correct?
yes,
Okay, so the motion on the table is that the per year portion of the property management in each category would be removed. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Did we, in our previous meeting, and I'm sorry, I can't remember, did we specifically say we were going to exclude listing and representation agreements for
We
any
did.
kind of credit
We
at
did.
all?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Okay,
Bob, is your hand still up?
I'm sorry, I forgot to take it down. I forget that. Sorry.
That's okay. Just want to make
Thank
sure
you.
you didn't want to add anything.
Thanks for checking. I appreciate it.
Any other changes to this form that we want to discuss today?
that's all I had.
Going once, twice, sold.
A chance?
Right? Yes, there it
I
is.
think we had also discussed, and I don't know if y'all want to do it or not, is putting property management as a separate category instead of under each of these, just having it its own category.
I would personally not recommend that.
Okay.
I think it's okay where it is too.
Yeah. And then,
They're different animals in different places.
right, and then there was one other thing, I think, about the brokerage team management, taking out team managers or team management.
About just making him a supervisor instead
Right.
of just talking about team management.
Correct.
Yeah.
So would the change be on line number 11, just removing the words manager and or? So it just says number of months per year as delegated supervisor?
Mm-hmm.
I would make that motion.
A second.
Any discussion? Okay, for point of clarification, the motion on the floor is that the words manager and the word or be removed from line 11. So that line 11 would read number of months per year as delegated supervisor. All in favor of the motion? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Change it there too, just in case somebody missed it.
Okay.
One more place on the form, so we don't miss it. Brokerage branch office or team management. Right here. No, I'm just saying, we should put, we should keep it the same.
That won't be there. That won't be there anymore.
Okay, it won't be there.
Yeah, that won't be there.
Okay,
That's the
yeah,
current
okay.
one. Yeah. Okay, very good. So those edits will be made, brought back to us for our next meeting.
We did receive a public comment related to this morning.
Okay,
So, sorry, I'm saying this very quietly. We did receive a public comment related to this morning. I think, and I did not get the chance to read it thoroughly, nor have I had consistent internet. Amber was gonna try and post it. I think the primary concerns are addressed via the experience. I think this person was upset about the change in the experience points component.
because they have to do more work.
So I'm not sure if this works better as, having not been able to look at it, but it seems like he's upset at the 50 to 750. No, I'm not sure if that's what the numbers actually worked out to. I think this is addressed by the fact that we gave the wrong number.
Yeah.
So we can look at this a little bit in a little bit more detail. I think I may also have a voicemail from this person. But we can bring this, to the extent it is not resolved, we can bring this to the next meeting with the new revisions to the form.
Okay.
Because I don't think we've had enough time. Well, you all certainly haven't had enough time to look at it.
Well,
So-
it was based off of
off the wrong calc. And I'm saying that again, just from having looked at it pretty quickly, but I do want, if that person is listening, we will address this comment. It will, and nothing is moving forward officially on any of this. So I think we can put it in the next one to the extent we still need it.
Perfect. Let's go with that. Number 7, so.
I'm gonna give you some. Oh, Amber, did you have other dates? I know we're moving to. Yeah, I think she was maybe gonna give you guys dates even further into the future if you wanted to.
So we were discussing earlier about the possibility of just going ahead and pre-scheduling our meetings for, ostensibly the next year. And that way, everybody can block calendar dates well in advance.
And we have groups that do that. And that doesn't mean that there can be some change to that as needed. That you're not, forever locked, but it does seem to help a lot of folks with planning. I, for some reason, thought I just saw a hand up. Did I miss?
Bill has his hand up.
Oh, Bill has his hand up.
Yeah, are we going to talk about the Trek requirements for licensure form that you redlined?
Sorry, Bill, we had somebody joining the meeting as you were finishing up that sentence. Can you repeat that, please, sir?
Yeah, are we going to address the Trek redlined, details where you made some changes?
On the rule, you mean?
Yes.
No, I don't think so, because the version that you have has the wrong points in it, but changes will need to be made in accordance with the form changes that you made, so we'll bring it for it goes along with that supplement, so we'll bring that to the next meeting.
Right, that's fine, but I would say that under the property management category in each of those sections, you have rental, property management, and rent collection comment. So it probably would want to delete anything related to rental or rent collection in all 3 of those categories. On page 2 of that.
So you're saying 1C, 2C, and 3C, as it turns out.
Yeah.
In each one of those sections.
Exactly.
What would be the proposed change, Bill?
Well, it should just say property management per property, and wouldn't say per year. It would track the same language it's going to be in the form.
Okay, and the concern being that, going back to what you said earlier, they would count each time they collected rent?
No, yeah, the property management has nothing to do about rent collection.
Right.
And it really the language should be exactly the same as in the form.
So property management per property.
Exactly.
Okay. Noted. When we bring that back, it'll reflect accordingly.
Right.
I think
that goes with the form change.
I think it's a good call.
Do you have that? Is that?
Are we talking about the form or the rule?
The rule.
Okay, yes. The form doesn't.
See.
Okay.
Would take anything that says rental collection and per year off, or I'm sorry, per property off.
And that ends up being a
Just to reflect.
Yeah, I want to make sure
Just make it, yes, I'm just making sure that
Just for notes.
we can make sure we're in sync.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, so meeting dates.
Okay, I put the dates in the chat, but the normal dates are the second Wednesday of January, April, July, and October. So on our agenda, we have the next suggested date as Wednesday, October 13th, with alternate dates, the 12th or the 14th.
Wednesday, October 13th. Anybody have a problem with that?
And I need to note something here for everybody. The open meetings waiver, the AG had a COVID waiver on open meetings provisions that is, as we understand it, set to expire September 1. So these meetings are going to start being in real life. And that may be, I'm sorry?
In person.
In person, sorry. And so that's something that when you're looking at these calendar dates, you're going to want to think about in terms of, you know.
You will need to be present in this large room that has 5 people in it right now. 7 people, sorry.
Remote option still.
Yes, there is a remote option. It's complicated, so I want to generally, I'm not precluding it, but I want to generally set the expectation that these meetings are in person here.
Okay.
That does not mean there are not some options available, which I can discuss with folks individually, but I want to start thinking about people at a table, and which is different. This group has never met in person. This is it.
Wow.
It's been great though.
Cool.
You guys have missed some good jokes over here.
Yeah.
All right. So does anybody have a problem with October 13th? Live in Austin.
I have
Okay.
a question.
Go for it.
This is Jan Miller.
Hi,
Do
Jan.
the commissioners who are liaisons need to be in person for the future meetings?
No,
You do not.
but you can be.
Good. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, we were looking forward to seeing your smiling face, Jan. Come on now.
Come on to the commission meeting.
It's funny.
Well played, well played. All right, and then the additional dates that we are looking at, if we want to go ahead and block dates and calendars, would be Wednesday, the 12th of January, and Wednesday, the 13th of April.
So if anybody knows they can't make any of these, this is the time to start saying that. And typically these will get revisited at different meetings, like I said, so it's not super set in stone, but it is certainly more set in stone. And this is likely what you would have seen regardless, because we have an internal rotating schedule, but this should help everybody to plan a little bit better, especially since there will be travel associated with it now.
What were the 2 dates? What were the dates in next year?
January the 12th, Wednesday, January the 12th, and Wednesday, April the 13th.
That's not spring break for kids, right?
No,
Okay.
it's March.
I just want to make sure. I think we're good, right?
Okay, so we need to, we're going to add a little agenda item here based on public comment from earlier. And specifically, do we want to add Lee's suggestion when it comes to property management to as an agenda item for our next meeting? Have a discussion about?
I think we at least ought to be discussing it. I think we at least ought to have it as an agenda item.
Okay.
It's certainly an important subject.
Pam, you were saying?
I agree with Bob.
Okay. Is there anybody who doesn't think we should?
I think we should discuss that. My question to the staff would be what kind of, or to the group is, what kind of materials and sort of information do we need to sort of be considering, and that would help us evaluate that. I don't know if Lee's particular it looked like he had a sort of a printed statement that he was reading from. That might help us. And also maybe if there's any particular information that, with regard to complaints regarding property management, with regard to, what's currently what TREC is currently doing with regard to that area. I just don't know, enough to really even discuss it at the meeting unless that purpose of the discussion on the agenda would be to create those questions. I'm just throwing it out. I don't know what we should, if there's anything we need to do in preparation of that line item.
It seemed to me that Lee did have some ideas and was willing to cooperate and help in whatever manner. So I think anything that Lee has in his proposal that could perhaps be sent out to the group email or whatever before the meeting. So we got some ideas. He also mentioned, I think it's a good idea to present some of this information to ESAC because there may be some educational things involved, whether it's going to be an 8-hour, 6-hour, 4-hour property management kind of course to go along with broker responsibility. So the more we can get of those kind of things and what he's kind of thinking about, what it looks like, so we'll know what we're going to be looking at the next meeting. I think that's a good idea, Bill.
Okay. Barbara Russell, you had your hand up?
Yes, I concur with Bob. If you could get a copy of his comments, would probably be very helpful.
And Jennifer Wheeler.
Hi there. Good to see you all. I've been pretty silent, but I can contribute something on this topic. ESAC has done some work in this regard, and I think it's a great idea to circle back with them, but I can also kind of give you guys a summary at your next meeting of where ESAC started and where they ended up on this topic. That might be helpful for you guys.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Good.
And then I would ask if we're going to continue our discussion with regard to the actual points awarded for each of the experience categories. I know that we spent a lot of time talking about that, and on the supplement that we got in the email, it showed some changes in those points, but I know that was pulled back. So I'm hoping that we haven't disregarded that previous work.
Brian, hold on to that thought for a second. Okay?
Sure.
All right. Bill, you have your hand up.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to also mention the same issue, and that I think it's important. So that we make sure that we do have a discussion on that. Would it make any sense to send out some kind of maybe a survey or something that we would fill out, and so that we'd have something to sort of work off of, maybe at that meeting?
Hold that thought too. All right, and then the other item that we were talking about adding to the agenda, so we'll add the property management discussion to the agenda for next meeting. The other item we were talking about adding to the agenda was Leslie's comment on adding how to file a complaint, or a link to filing a complaint to the IABS. Are we good with adding that to the agenda for next time as well? Anybody not okay with that? Speak now.
My question on that is that appropriate for this group?
That was my question as well.
And again, the IABS is really a consumer issue to just it's for identifying a representation issue. I don't know that it's, and again, I'm not saying we shouldn't discuss it. I'm just wondering if that's appropriate. It's really, if that's part of our mission. And if it is, that's great, we can do it. But
yeah, my thought was that it would be broker, lawyer, or enforcement, or some other.
Right.
Broker, lawyer, because it's not a promulgated form.
I think that's how it ended up here, is that it's sort of somewhere in the middle, because we actually asked, we asked for this to be sent separately here, because it had been in a broker lawyer comment. And so I think we can figure this out, and to the extent it doesn't go to enforcement or a different committee, then we'll put it here. And
Okay.
and have a little bit more info gathered on it.
I think to get our comments would be good. Yep.
Okay.
All right, excellent. All right, so let's take a step back to our supplement. We'll add those two things to our agenda for next time. But let's take a step back to the supplement. So my question is, do we want to go through these points today while we're on this call and talk about suggestions to things? Do we want to take some time and maybe mark up a version of this for the next meeting? How would y'all prefer to handle that?
I think if we can get copies or a recap of our previous recommendations, because we actually took it to the point where we were making a recommendation to the commission, who was going to take it to the, I guess, the legislature. But so I don't know what happened to that, and I'm happy to put it on the next agenda rather than hash that out today. But I don't know what happened to that and why we would need to start over.
In terms of so on the recommendation, the actual point, or I guess it's not the point recommendation, but in the experience education conversation and your recommendation, we need a legislative change that we did not get. And we hope to get at the next one. This last session was a different one. So I think the thought right now is the cleanup that you guys are doing to this form is sort of more in where you are, what you've been doing here, usability, you know, what's it addressing? What do you guys think needs to be in there? I don't know about a point conversation. I'm saying that and I'm looking over here, a point conversation. Unless you're thinking of like, is this that as important as that? I don't know, is that the conversation or is it the actual point calculation?
I think the conversation was about how little experience was required in order to get a broker's license. And our recommendation was actually doubling that amount of experience, while reducing the amount of education hours required. Right. So that's where we were headed.
Yeah, and so, you know, I'm going to say, unfortunately, that I don't think that move can be made on this form until we have that legislative change. That conversation is on pause at the moment. That recommendation is on pause to be picked up because it will require legislative change. So I'm saying that in terms of maybe this is put a pin in it on that component of it, but I don't want it to be really far from your minds because I think it's something we're going to start picking back up. Am I saying this wrong, Denise?
No, you are. I wanted to just add that we did make the change to the category of supervision.
We did.
We did make that point change on this form to allow an applicant to gain the full experience points. And again, because of the 720 versus 360, we'll need to make an adjustment, but that change will be made to allow an applicant to gain all of the experience points by supervising. Okay.
Right, but you're doing the number. It's the number.
Right, but the doubling of the points.
Right.
Can only happen if the education is adjusted.
If the education is adjusted, for which we need to get the legislative change.
Right.
So that's gonna be a 2023 affair. Yeah, we'll keep discussing it, obviously, but because 2023, as crazy as it's gonna sound, is gonna be here really soon.
Yeah, I thought we'd start talking about it sooner than anyone thinks we will.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll definitely keep it on the burner.
Okay, well that helps me understand kind of where, you know, what's going on. So basically, we're going to work within the current point or experience point structure that we have, but just clean up our form and make it a little simpler to understand, and then address these other issues as well, and then come back and revisit the increased experience required.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes,
Are you there? You hear me?
yes, sir.
Okay. And I understand from the legislative standpoint and working through that level, but to kind of what Brian was originally talking about, and Bill, I'd like to see some kind of a recap of our points, the conversation we've had so far. I think I'm not clear on where we are on the different points. So as we go forward for 2023 with the legislature, that we see where we are for our points as we move to those total numbers. And frankly, I'm not sure where we are with the points. And I think some kind of a recap, a summary in these categories of kind of what we think we've talked about today and where we are. So I think for the next meeting, we can have that discussion. So once we get all that done, we're in a better position to send this thing to the legislator, and we know what's behind this bigger move or the points behind that. So it would help me to have some kind of a recap.
Very good. We will have staff prepare that and bring it to our next meeting in October.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else have any comments before we adjourn? This was a good meeting. I feel like we got a lot accomplished, actually.
Yeah.
Well done.
Good one.
Yeah. Leslie, thank you for your service as chair up to this point. We're excited to have you as a commissioner. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ty, welcome to your first meeting.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I loved it.
Yeah, so exciting stuff. Anything from staff before we adjourn?
Thanks for your time. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. Meeting is adjourned. I will see you here in this room in October live. Have a great afternoon.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.